Clay Travis, Buck Sexton show. We head out to the state of Arizona. It's going to be a major battleground, as it always has been the past several cycles, but certainly in 2026, opportunity to replace the governor there. Big battle going on over who the representative will be. And wanting to go to D.C., friend of the show, Jay Feely, Arizona's 5th congressional district. Jay Feely, many of you know, played in the NFL 14 years. Has been also 10 years as an NFL analyst with CBS. And what's this stat? It's a pretty cool stat. Pat Summerall is the only kicker to be in the broadcast booth more than you doing NFL games. Is that, I mean, everybody knows Pat Summerall as the legendary co-host of John Madden back in the day, but also, a lot of people don't realize this, Pat Summerall, father of Susie Wiles, who is now the chief of staff in Trump administration 2.0, tying it all together there for you, Jay.
Yeah, just an honor to be even mentioned with Pat Summerall because he is such a legend. And, very cool to see what Susie is doing with President Trump and how respected she is. We've gotten to know each other a couple times with St. Jude because I've done a lot with St. Jude. I had a niece of mine who has gone twice to St. Jude Hospital to have surgery on her cancer, and they were amazing to her, and so I've supported them, and Susie has as well. So they give away the Pat Summerall Award every year. But excited for my opportunity to run for office. I just felt like this was the time. I had said no for a few years. And to be honest and candid, I love my job. I love doing NFL games and calling games and being in the booth and getting to do all the production meetings and sit down with coaches and players and work for 5 months and then having 7 months off, but really felt called, my wife and I did, that this was the time for us to serve our country.
Jay, thank you for being on the show, and appreciate that you've decided that you are, or you have been called, perhaps a better way of putting it, to put your hat in the ring to be a member of our illustrious, Congress. Some days it's illustrious, some days we feel like it's letting us down a little bit, but we know you'll do a great job if you get there. And it's all looking good for you in that respect so far. How do you feel? Where do you fit in, or what's your I'll put it this way. What is your relationship to MAGA, Jay, and the movement that has become really the leadership, the tip of the spear for the Republican Party?
Well, I've supported President Trump for a long time, ever since he first ran for office. We got to know each other when I was with the Jets, playing for the Jets, and he wasn't running for office yet himself. We were just doing some charity events together with his foundation. And, I really was impressed with just who he was and his willingness to serve. He didn't have to run for office. He's wealthy and rich and famous and doing his TV shows. And he decided that he wanted to try to make this country better, similar to what I feel. And I think, the things that we believe in economically, free markets and less taxes and equal opportunity and limited government, the need to balance the budget, those are all things that I want to try to do and be an advocate for in Congress.
Jay, I'm curious, in your experience, Trump 1.0, you said you were a Trump guy. It was the case that if you were in sports media, people wanted you to keep your head down and not acknowledge that you were a Trump guy. Trump 2.0 now, Politico's got a huge story about it today. The sports world loves Trump. What do you think has changed? Do you think it's just a function of people are being more honest now? Do you think it was the Biden term was so bad? You've been a Trump guy for a while. What's different as it pertains to the culture, whether it's Christian Pulisic, John Jones, the cheering at the Super Bowl? What is going on that sports fans and Trump are now in love with each other?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I think part of it was he was labeled a racist when he was running, in 2016. But I think when you look at his administration and Biden's administration and the differences and what happened to our country, I think people got frustrated with COVID when we lost our liberties. I think they saw the hypocrisy of the Democrat Party when you had the BLM riots and the response to destruction of people's property and their businesses and murders. I think when you look at the DEI policies and the transgender policies and guys playing in girls' sports, I think people have rejected that. And I think let me
cut you off there for a sec, because I think as a locker room guy, We had this conversation with the HUD secretary last week, and I think it's important. What percentage of NFL players, current and past, do you think believe that men should be able to compete against women?
I would say it's under 5%. I think it's a very, very low number. I think anybody who has a sister and watched their sisters play sports, or myself with my daughters, the reason I got into coaching, like there was not a girls' soccer team at the high school that my daughter was going to go to. And I said, well, that's ridiculous. We have to have a girls' soccer team. And they were like, well, we need a coach. And I said, well, I'll coach the team. And to provide that opportunity, I love what sports does to develop discipline and toughness and camaraderie and fighting for something that's greater than yourself. Those are all lessons that you learn in sports to carry on the rest of your lives. And I never want to see a girl not have an opportunity because some guy decides, I want to take my physical and biological advantages and go play a sport that I know that physically I'm better. Or, I'll give you another example. Like we would play, because I wanted our girls to win a state championship. So we're going to practice against our guys team that was really good. But I would sit down beforehand with the guys coach and all the players on the guys team and be like, listen, you can't go in for tackles full speed against our girls. I don't want somebody getting hurt in this practice. I want your speed and your power to stretch them and to push them, but I don't want them getting injured. And that's the kind of situation they create when you have girls competing against, or guys competing against girls in a physical sport.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Jay, I'm wondering, I've never actually, I don't think I've ever gotten to talk to an NFL kicker before. Certainly not one of your stature. I'm sort of, and I'm a very casual observer of professional sports. I'm not at Clay level where it is a life's passion, not by a long shot. But I do wonder, and knowing what I know about this, and having actually beaten most of the Amherst College men's football team at Madden, because I was good at video games, and we would have tournaments when I was in college, and you were a fantastic kicker. That's what I remember. I probably won some money off some of my friends thanks to your leg. Is being a kicker in the NFL the greatest job in the NFL or the most stressful job in the NFL? Because on the one hand, I think you get to make great money, right? And this stuff is all pretty well known. You make great money as a professional athlete, and you get to put points on the board, and the team has to love you. But also, like, if you hit the upright and you don't get it, it might be a lonely ride back on the bus. Like, how should one think about that?
Well, I would say punter is a better job than kicker, because if you have 4 out of 5 good punts in a game, you're going to have a good game. It's okay if you didn't have one great punt as long as they don't return it for a touchdown. Whereas kicking, you can only miss 3 or 4 kicks in a year to have a good year where they're not going to look at replacing you. And those kicks can't be game-winning kicks. Like, you can't come in and miss a couple game winners and a team and a fan base not think about replacing you. And that's kind of the reality of kicking. You have to be able to handle pressure, and you have to be able to handle failure. And that was probably my greatest attribute. I couldn't kick it the farthest. I wasn't the best. I wasn't the most accurate, but I could handle failure. And it didn't defeat me. It didn't break me going forward. And when I got to the point in my career where I was like, okay, I failed as bad as I could fail. Saturday Night Live did a spoof about me called The Jay Feely Story, The Long Ride Home. And it didn't break me. That allowed me to be a lot better because I started losing some of that fear of failure and just having fun out there. And then the next 9 years after that skit, I didn't miss another game winner.
Huh.
What is it like as a kicker to be mocked on Saturday Night Live?
I didn't know about that. I had no idea about any of this.
That either.
Yeah.
So I missed 3 game winners with the Giants out in Seattle late in the season. One at the end of the game, 2 in overtime. Obviously the worst game of my career. And the next week, I'm getting ready we're going to play Philadelphia. It's Saturday night. I'm trying to go to sleep. I'm trying not to lose my job the next day. And I get a bunch of text messages, and they're like, dude, they're killing you on Saturday Night Live right now. And, of course, I didn't look at it or watch it. I go play the game the next day at Philadelphia. We go to overtime again. I got a game winner again. And they call timeout to ice me, and they play a montage of my misses on the Jumbotron in the stadium from the game where I missed all the game winners. And you're sitting there, and that's where mental discipline comes in, because you can't let your mind wander. If you miss this kick, you're probably going to lose your job. Your kids are going to have to change schools. You're going to have to sell the house and move. You don't know if you'll ever have a job in the NFL again, but you can't let your mind think about those things. You have to discipline it to not allow it to wander, to either think about the positive implications or the negative implications. And I think that's the challenge with kicking. It's why you see guys that are really good one year and then have a really bad miss and then can never do it again.
Did you make the kick?
Of course. I played for 9 more years. If I missed that kick,
yeah, but you made that kick. Now, is that still allowed? This is a great. I didn't know this backstory. Is it allowed in the NFL to show negative highlights still on the Jumbotron? Like, I don't remember seeing a montage of kicker misses. I'm a season ticket holder. Is that still allowed today, or has that been this? I've never even heard of that.
So the Mara family was not happy after that game. I know they went to the NFL and complained about it, because you take that and you extrapolate, say, think of all the things you could put up on a Jumbotron during a game.
Oh, yeah.
In the opposing players' minds. You can put all.
Yeah, I would say that falls into a category of actually bad sportsmanship. I don't think that's all in good fun. I think it's bad sportsmanship.
It's the city of brotherly love. So what do you expect?
Oh, it was Philly? Yeah. Okay. Well, they do have that courthouse under the stadium, right? So that's.
I bet that made the winning kick after they did that unbelievably joyful for you in that celebration.
Would you always know, Jay, when you kicked? Would you always know, like, the second you made contact? Obviously there's like a couple seconds where it's airborne, right? Would you know every time you hit it, I got it or I didn't?
Pretty much as soon as you make contact, if that ball's starting where you want. There's a couple times with wind, like the first kick in that game I was talking about where I missed the game winner. I hit it exactly where I wanted in Seattle. I thought the wind was going to bring it back right, and it shifted and it brought it left, and you missed by, a little bit. But for the most part, when you hit, it's like a golfer. You kind of know the ball comes off, okay, I hit that one well.
What's the best kick you ever made?
The most important kick I ever made was probably in high school. In the state semifinals, I had a game winner at the end of the game, and I make that kick, and we go on to the state finals. And for me, that was when I first started thinking about doing kicking as a career. I was a soccer player. I kind of played everything growing up, but till that moment, I never really looked at kicking as something I wanted to do. And then that kick led to me going to college at Michigan and then getting into the NFL. And then broadcasting for 10 years and now running for office. I kind of feel like that kick started the journey for me over the next quarter of a century.
Very cool. All right.
How do people, if they want to support you in Arizona's 5th, what should they know and what should they do?
Well, they should know that, first of all, I'm a fighter, and I'm not afraid to stand up for my beliefs. Working in broadcast media for a major network like CBS, like, people didn't like that you would talk about your support of Republicans, conservatives, and especially Trump. And I was never afraid to do that. I would post pictures when he and I would get together and play golf, and I would get called into the principal's office all the time for doing that. And my perspective always was, listen, you're not going to do that if I'm posting something that's liberal, so don't do it if I post something that's conservative. But I think people should know that I'm going to stand up and be an advocate for conservative principles and the America First policy. You can go to jfeelyforcongress.com, sign my petition if you live in the district, or you can support us financially. But more than anything, I just want to be somebody who is willing to talk about their beliefs and do it in a compassionate way and be able to advocate for Republicans and conservative causes. And, we're going to have a fight in 2026 to keep the House and the Senate, and I want to be part of that fight.
Jay, one thing people may not know about you, Tom Brady, teammate at the University of Michigan, quickly on your way out. What's Brady like?
He is the most compassionate dude. I never knew he was going to be as good as he was. We were at college for 4 years together and roomed together in some of the summers and worked at the University of Michigan golf course together. And I just never knew he would be as good as he was, but I knew he was a great leader. I think that's the thing that stands out the most is his willingness to be humble and to take all the stuff that Belichick gave to him and to use him as an example for everyone else. That's what led to the greatness, because he had those leadership qualities to bring everybody together, and then the insatiable desire to be the best ever.
Awesome stuff. Well, we hope the voters of Arizona's 5th Congressional District are listening, and I love that you were willing to take the slings and arrows for being a Trump guy when it wasn't popular to be a Trump guy.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks for everything you guys do. Love listening.
Appreciate that. That's Jay Feely. Awesome dude. Encourage you guys, if you're in Arizona, again, 2026, Once again, Arizona is going to be a focal point, one of the big battlegrounds. Trump won by a lot, but they're going to have the governor's race, the congressional races, a lot going on there. You heard about prescription drug prices last week, right? President Trump signed an executive order last Monday slashing the cost of prescription drugs, going after price gouging for drugs you're getting with Obamacare. It'll be a little while until all that kicks in, but what about trying to save money on your health insurance now? We want to introduce you to Ease for Everyone. Compared to Obamacare, Ease for Everyone comes with a monthly cost as low as $262. You get access to over 400 prescription drugs for free, not just at a lower cost, but no cost, $0. And unlike the broken promise of Obamacare, you actually get to keep your doctor. Plus, you get free unlimited virtual primary care. You can have affordable health care for as low as $262 a month today. Go online to easeforeveryone.com/Clay to join today. That's easeforeveryone.com/Clay.